everyone, welcome to another episode of Fangirlz Review. We are continuing our journey through Hellblazer, the DC Vertigo seminal series of 300 plus issue. And joining me today in this journey, as always, Bethany. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a while. We came back to it. So last time we ended with Brian Azzarello's Hellblazer, which neither of us was very into it. I mean, I think as of right now, that is like the worst part of
Yeah, I put a bad taste in my mouth, and it was kind of hard for me to get motivated to start the...
I know. So we are pretty much mirroring each other's every feelings, because it's like you're like, do you want to feel like reading anymore? I'm like, I don't know about that. So we kind of had the exact same feelings about this, and then we're gonna take a little bit of break and then come back fresh. And this time it's gonna be Mike Carey's run that goes from 175 to 215. I personally am a big fan of Mike Carey. I love his Lucifer's run. And I was very disappointed to see there was only one panel of Lucifer. He did not make an appearance, even though Garth Ennis's story with Gabriel actually makes the appearance in Mike Carey's Lucifer. So I was like, ooh, they're gonna be a face off, because
like a cameo or something.
Yeah, because Lucifer and Gabriel are brothers, right? So it's going to be like, you destroyed my brother or something. No, none of that. But and then I also love his Suicide Risk, so I was very, very excited to read his Hellblazer run, and we're gonna talk about it. So to get one of the things I'm gonna say it, and we're just talking about it before, we both had the same feelings about the first part of it, whereas we read about a week ago. And Bethany, do you remember any of this?
So I don't remember the first half of volume 16, but the second half I do, because it ties into the rest of the volumes, but that's about it.
Right. And the thing is, I had the exact same thing. It's really feeling like, compared to all the other ones, which was very memorable, and because good or they bad, even for the Brian Azzarello's, which we didn't like, but we still remembered
I remember it.
Yeah, remembered it for being so weird.
Yeah.
This one, for some reason, it felt like either John did a mind wipe on us or something, because it really feels like holding on to water on your palm. It's like, oh, I'm holding on to the memories, because I'm like, Evan, we need to talk about it as soon as possible, because we're forgetting everything.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to spoil some things, and we're actually going to also talk about some of the stuff from Jamie Delano's run, because that comes back over here. So this is, I think, for the first time ever, I feel like the previous writer's stuff really mattered, because I don't know what you did you feel that way about other ones? Or
yeah, because there were certain characters I'm glad I remembered, because they were pretty important in some of the later volumes of this run, for sure.
Right. And the thing is, we didn't see this kind of thing in previous previous writers' iteration as well, because they kind of did their own thing. Yeah. But Mike Carey seems to have relying heavily on the incidents of Jamie Delano's run. And also one of our favorite from Garth Ennis's run makes a comeback for one issue. But otherwise, it's it's a very very sequel. It didn't. If I read this first, I'm like, who are these people? What's going on? Why do I care?
And I will say too, it felt like a lot of callbacks to old characters, but also they had some random cameos, I noticed. But I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that is true. That that did happen. Swamp Thing makes an appearance as usual, and then one thing that did make an appearance that I was very appreciative about is a tree tattoo on his ass.
Yeah, the joke about that, I forgot. That was so funny. He's like, we know who he is.
How do we know who he is? He has a tree tattoo on his ass. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's how we know. That makes an appearance. And I actually did thought about you. I'm like, yeah, because Bethany will get a laugh out of it. All right, so with that, let's start with, so this is volume... Which volume is this? That 16. We start 16, volume 16. So tell us what the story was about.
So I'm going to just read you some of my notes I have, but I remember there being a focus around this shadow dog, right? And they're not sure what it's doing. but they do know that John's trying to like. So I'm just gonna tell you about the second half because I honestly don't remember the first. John is trying to gather a bunch of different magical users he knows and trying to get them to help him. But we aren't quite sure why he's trying to get them to help. We do so really cool Swamp Thing cameo. He gets a lot of help from him, and then his new girlfriend Angie that was introduced. The main thing that I pulled out of the whole volume, she went to this place called Eden and finds this like magical. It just looks like a stick. But
magical MacGuffin.
It's really important, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were trying to say it was called, but.
And she buries it in Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's when I was like, the whole time I was thinking about that. Like whenever that Eden or like God and all of that kind of comes into play, I'm like, yes, Lucifer's going to come there any minute. No, he didn't. He didn't.
Yeah.
But one thing I was going to say, though, like, this girlfriend of the writer, you can say, because I was really hoping that he's going to get a boyfriend this time around, because we know that he is like, he can swing both ways. Mm-hmm. But the boyfriend of the girlfriend of the writer, she starts like, it's really artist dependent, but at the very beginning, she looked like a teen that is like really interested into knowing magic and, from John and stuff. But then later on, they hooked up, and I was like, this is not good.
So there's an artist, and he did some of the Brian Azzarello stuff. I can't remember his name, but he does. One common theme I've noticed is he draws big butts, and so her butt started to get bigger. And then there was a post I actually made on the Omnibus group because Swamp Thing's butt was big too, and I was like, "What the heck?"
Hey, listen, it's an equal opportunity butt man.
That's maybe he just
that's who he is. I mean, he even likes tree butts. Like, like let's like get some badunkadunk. So that was a thing, because I was very annoyed about that, though, because I was so sure that Angie is a underage kid who is, because we actually get to see a little bit of her life as well, because she's kind of partying with this young, these kids and stuff like that. So I was so sure. And then it's like, oh yeah, let's hook up. I'm like,
I'm going to hope she was at least like in her 20s, but I'm not. Yeah, they didn't really say, so I don't know.
And the thing is, like, John grows normally. Like, so at this point, he's pretty much in his mid-50s. So
I was going to say he's at least 50, right? Because
he's a hot-looking 50 years old, but still, he's 50. So it's like, oh god.
Yeah, even if he was 20, it's okay, but it's still a little weird.
Right. So is it this volume? I do like, remind me. Is where his niece makes an appearance, like, that he shows up to his.
Yeah, if she did make an appearance, it was at the very end, because I know she's all the way through volume 17 and 18. So she might. I just don't remember, but if she did, it was at the end for sure.
Right, because I think like when we first see John, he comes back from America, because he was in America for like whole of Brian Azzarello's run. Somehow between traveling and he comes in a ship. And in that time, he loses the smark, because he was smarking the whole way of Brian Azzarello's run, as you would remember. So he lost the smark, and he's back in his own ways. And he has also dyed his hair black and stuff. And his
so that's what really confused me too, because I wasn't sure who everybody was. Oh wait, okay, she's pretty much I'm wrong about that. So she is in volume 16. I just saw it.
In the first
Somebody
part,
was like holding her like ransom or something.
Correct. In the first part, which we both forgot. And then she goes to her sister, and then her sister's like, oh yeah, my she's in somewhere in France, but he very quickly realized she's not, and she kind of goes into this journey to kind of find her. But then we realize that she was being held hostage because she wants to be a magician, and then it kind of I was kind of very annoyed, even though later on we realized that she kind of becomes a badass on her own terms. I was really annoyed the fact that it was another one of those, put the girl in a terrible situation to motivate the man, because
Yeah, and so my interpretation of it was that she was being held hostage, but she didn't realize it. It seemed like she thought she was kind of in control of the situation, but she wasn't.
Right. And the thing is, like, she does get smacked a lot, which I'm like, come on. And
Yeah.
we do know that she's a teen, like she's a late teen, early 20s. So
and she looks so different too. That's, I don't know.
yeah, and then
I
that's
didn't realize it was her.
yeah, and the thing is, like, also the butt situation didn't help the matter as well, because I'm like, what are we doing? Because in the Delano's run, she was a child. We saw her kind of grow up, so it was very uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable about
Didn't she
it.
have like short hair at one point in some of the
Yeah,
volumes, and now it's like long and black?
yeah, and then the thing is that the hair length kind of changed depending on who the artist was. Apparently, no one talked with no one else. And then I was like, the whole time I was like, what is going on? And then, yeah, so then there was like the MacGuffin that he had to go find for this person. Turns out that it was some kind of treasure that you don't know. And the whole time you were thinking that, oh my God, it's going to be something really big. In the end, it turned out some weird, like,
yeah. It comes in later in the plot, but it's just like, what is this, and why do we care?
Right, and that's what, like, a very interesting, like, point is like previous, like, Hellblazer thing. Whichever the mystery was, you kind of really cared about it, but this time around, I felt like it wasn't very well explained. Like, so the mystery was kind of taken to an extreme, so that you don't even, you're like, okay, what's the point? Like, give me something. Like, I don't know. It just felt weird for me.
But I don't know. I think overall it was still okay. It's just like you said, the overall plot was kind of confusing. It didn't kind of wrap up until like later on. So.
Right. And that's also another thing. Like, so typically it, like, you have the short arcs, which gives you a clue for the next arc to kind of. But the clues that were here, you didn't know those are clues until you read volume 18. That's when you're like, oh yeah, that was a thing that mattered.
But it's like you have to really remember. So
yeah, which is also hard to do, as was very eminent over here. We forgot.
Right.
We're like, huh? So yeah, so what did you ended up rating volume 16 in your Goodreads?
Yeah, I gave it a 4, but I'm gonna be honest, the Swamp Thing cameo got me really excited, and that was about halfway through the volume, so I was like, okay.
I'm pretty sure it was a Swamp Thing and his ass tattoo return of
like,
yeah, that was like, it was automatic 4-star for that day. Like, it's like, oh yes, I'm doing this.
Right.
I think I gave it a 3 because first part I was really annoyed about, like, okay, what's going on? I'm bored. There's none of this making sense. But the second part kind of won me over a little bit. So that kind of brings us to volume 17. What was the story of the volume 17?
Okay, so let me look through my little notes. The Shadow Dog comes back. That's in the first part, and they kind of figure out what the Shadow Dog was. And it was mostly, which I didn't really understand why they cared about the Shadow Dog, but I know, I guess it was messing stuff up for some people. But this was where, let's see. Okay, I wrote down he gets help from all the other magicians, and then, and also John's niece. But the Shadow Dog ends up being like a trap, and he doesn't know who's setting the trap, but they think it might be the devil. I think, let's see. Yeah, and this was really weird because, like, do you remember, like, wasn't it like the whole world was basically like kind of like zombies almost?
Right. So the thing is, like, everyone turns into a zombie.
Yeah.
And because that was kind of like a whole thing that where volume 16 ends, like, oh, this is going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
And then there was dreams involved. Everyone turned into zombie, and then everyone is kind of like stuck in that situation.
And people were losing their memories.
Yeah, people were losing their memories and all that. But the thing is, like, I didn't feel anything about it. There was no, I didn't feel a fear. I didn't feel like, oh my God, how is John going to fix this? Because it was like kind of told in such a weird, like, I didn't care. Did you care?
There were some things I cared about, but it wasn't necessarily the plot itself, because I feel like that didn't, like you said, it didn't really get explained until volume 18. But let's see. So we start to see that it's Nurgle's daughter. So
right.
Nurgle's from the Delano run.
Right.
Right?
Nurgle from the Duran Run, who is also the responsible for the Newcastle incident, who
Mm-hmm.
is also the one that, he had a blood transfusion with. So
Yeah.
Zed, was, I don't want to say this term, but they kind of say it, like Zed was ruined. Ugh,
Mm,
gross,
yeah.
because, John's demon seeds or demon sperm went into, it's okay.
Is
So
that where they made the dragon baby?
yeah, that
The egg?
oh god,
That was
yeah,
so
that
weird.
that whole thing, that lady, and then this Nargle it's not him, but his daughter
Mm-hmm.
wants to enslave John for one day, and because of that, he got him into the situation where he has no other recourse but to subject himself to her.
Yeah. And you go through the novel and like not really knowing who's doing this, but you think it's the devil because they just show like this huge demon, like it's like the portal opens and it's
Right.
like sucking people in.
And then that was like you think that's a devil, or the first one
Yeah.
from Ennis's run, who is doing all of this, who we last seen as like a Greek weirdo in Paul Jenkins' run. So that's when I'm like, well, wait a second, how is he coming into play on this? Well, too bad, it's not him, it's someone else. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. I was really annoyed about Volume 17. I liked the plots and everything.
Yeah.
It was okay once it was explained at the very end, but through it all, I was very annoyed.
I will definitely say like some of it was kind of confusing, like not wrapping up some of the plot. But it felt like it was kind of like you said, some of the dream state stuff. It's like, are you trying to call back Jamie Delano?
And I was so scared that all of a sudden he's gonna start doing that whole stream of consciousness thing that I hated so much from the Jamie Delano. And even worse, the hippies will come back.
Yeah. Oh god. Well,
remember those hippies? I was like, oh no, please don't bring the hippies back.
I will say I had some things that I wrote down that I did really like about the thing because I actually rated it kind of highly. So Swamp Thing does another cameo. He gets help from John's niece, and Chaz is kind of involved, but not really. They are trying to like help. I'm trying to think. Was this one that? Yeah, Constantine was stuck in hell, basically, or in some sort of realm or something, right?
Right.
And so they're trying. The niece is trying to help, so she summons Swamp Thing, and he gets this really badass armor from. Do you remember that? Yes. What armor from the weird stick thing in the 16th volume?
Right. And then Swamp Thing has like a whole thing. It's like, oh, he only uses me when he needs something. I'm like, yeah.
He can go to hell and all this other stuff.
Right. I'm like, yeah, that's right. That John by now. Why are you even surprised? Like, I was more annoyed that he was surprised than the fact that John did that.
Yeah, at this point. And also, there was a few cameos. I haven't read Books of Magic, but Tim Hunter was a cameo. I thought there was a cameo from Lucifer, but am I wrong?
No, it was just only one panel. It was only one.
So there was one. But
there was only one panel because of everyone turning into zombie, and then Lucifer's his right-hand woman, she was like, oh, are we gonna do anything? And it's like, nope. I'm like, oh, come on, that's the man who took your brother's heart. Do something.
He's basically just like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, So the thing is, that Gabriel, the Lucifer's by, I'm forgetting the writer's name, but the 2016 run of Lucifer actually have Gabriel from Ennis's run joined with him, and he talks about it a lot, that a magician took his heart. So it's the same Lucifer and it's the same Gabriel, and I'm like, why aren't we seeing more of that?
Opportunity with that.
Yeah, there was a great opportunity, and I was so sure John's going to go and find him as well, and then he's like, hell no. And I wanted to see them going head to head because Lucifer is very smart. So that. I'm really sour about not having Lucifer in this. I don't know if you can tell it. But yeah, so the thing is, like, his niece gets to be a little bit more of a badass over here because there's also the two issues where it's all just her, and there's two other magician who is, That was like a whole thing with the kids and everything. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so it's kind of towards the end, and this goes into the volume 18 where Nurgle's daughter, like, are you talking about when she basically makes a deal with him, right? And he has to like do something for her for the whole day.
No, I'm talking about the niece. They go on an island. Remember the island with like two other weirdos?
Maybe not.
Oh, see, it didn't matter. This is why, Bethany doesn't remember it, not because, she forgets, but because it didn't matter. The stories didn't matter. Like, I only remember it. I'm like, well, yeah, she gets to be a little bit of badass. But, yeah, she goes to this island with with a bunch of kids who are all stuck there, and they're all werewolves or whatever they are. And then she gets to free them by killing this other person that she's not supposed to kill. So that was a very John Constantine, she's following pretty much her uncle's footstep kind of thing, and I kind of enjoyed that.
Don't they they're like flying werewolf
vampire? Right, it was flying werewolf vampire thing. I'm like, how cool is that? And yet,
I remember that now.
Yeah, and yet it didn't make an impression on us. So, yeah. But the thing is, I did like issue 200 though, because that's when, the Nargil's daughter gets his service. But what happens, she kind of extends the whole one day into 40 plus years. And he had 3 children with significant girlfriends of his. Mm-hmm. One of them is Kit. Another is Zed. And the third one is, I forgot who was the third one.
Ooh, I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. I think it was Angie. But the thing is, it was pretty much Nargil's daughter in the form of these 3 ladies, and she has a child with each one of them. And she, John is in a very happy mode because he's get to be a family person and family man and have children with them and have a love and everything. Only to realize it was just that one day, which was extended for 40 years. And
yeah. It's like an alternate life. So, if John was able to retire somehow.
Correct.
And if things worked with him and Kit.
Right. And the thing is, it was very scary. It was because as you're reading it, I'm like, this is not right. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And then you realize at the end, oh, yeah, a lot of things went really wrong with him.
Yeah. And honestly, when I saw Kit, I was like, this ain't right.
Yeah, right? As soon as I saw Kit, I'm like, no, don't do this to us. Don't do this to us, because we really ship John and Kit.
Yeah.
But it was. But,
she's the only one.
Yeah, I know. It was really bad. But the thing is, I did kind of enjoy it because it left with this 3 demon spawn, who are imagine John and then times a million worse. All of worst part of John. And then, so then that kind of ends issue 17. Volume 17. What did you rate it?
I actually gave it a 5.
You did?
Yeah. Mostly because of all the cameos. I'm sorry. I'm like a sucker. I'm really biased when it comes to Swamp Thing stuff. And I loved the whole fight with him and the demon and in hell and stuff.
They just bought you off with the.
They really did.
I can't believe you could be bribed with Swamp Thing.
I was so excited. I'm not kidding. I was telling my husband, and he was like, he already knew I love Swamp Thing, so.
Right. So that because Swamp Thing was there, you had to give it 5.
Well, I did like how it wrapped up a lot of the other stuff. There was one part I forgot to mention in the plot. John doesn't have a memory for most of it, right? So he didn't get his memory back. The only reason he got it back was because of the deal he did with Nurgle's daughter. Right. So I did like that plot. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, was it over here that he gets to, or it was here or in volume 17 that he gets to meet the worst version of himself in hell? No, that was in volume 18. We're gonna talk about
18, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing, I did like issue 201 though, because that was some bracelet where people can get stuck. And that was a very much of a John story we knew and love. We know those one shots where he gets to do some magic and stuff like that. I did like that bit. And once that happened, I'm like, I'm going to give it a 4-star. Even though the whole time I was like, hate reading it. I'm like, what is this? Please stop. But the volume 2, issue 200 and 201 won me over.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty solid in my opinion, but I think too, the issue I had with Mike Carey's run, it had nothing to do with him. I really had like a sour taste from the last one we did. So it was hard to like see what was going to come after that.
That is very true. And I would say the one, like we kind of did talked about before, that how John uses his magic. Seems like nowadays he's doing a lot of incantation, which was not a thing before. Like it's not even an English, like he uses a different language and he does incantation and then does magic. And a lot of the time he's using magic. I'm like, you didn't used to do this. What are you doing, Johnny boy?
I think that was hard because they've never really given him a set. I know you don't really have to have rules for magic, but I feel like there should be like a set thing that he's supposed to do, and no author's really technically done that. It's just like, I'm gonna do stuff if I feel like it.
Well, there was a time when he could Professor X people. Like he could like, make people do whatever he want. I'm like, what is the limit of this man's power?
And then why is he? I don't know, maybe it's because he has to use certain people, but why does he seem weak in certain volumes where, like, in other ones he can, like, destroy, like, a whole prison or, you know what I mean? Like,
and he can also smark his way, because he lost the smark over the ocean. He dropped it in Atlantic, or whichever one that, what is it? Yeah, it is Atlantic, between America and England. I was so annoyed by it. But anyway, yeah. So in the end, I ended up giving it a 4-star. So that kind of brings up to volume 18. Spoiler alert, I liked this the best.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I liked this the most. And I think that the story is kind of, because this is where everything starts to make sense. But I was still annoyed that it took me this long for me to understand this. And it was a very much of his sister, focused on his sister a lot. And he has to go to hell because his sister was trapped in, because of the kids. The 3 kids, they kind of wreak havoc, and they come back and say that, we're going to take everything that John loves from this world. And they did a lot of things to Chaz, which is because Nargal takes over Chaz. So, and then as Nargal Chaz actually beats up his wife.
Beats up his wife, sleeps with a prostitute.
Like, it's poor
Chaz, though, because the wife can't see him as anything other than what he did. Because, you can't really come back from that, I feel like. So.
Yeah, and that's also one other thing, that all this time, Chaz was pretty much the cornerstone for, even though everyone else left John, Chaz was always there. But this is for the first time that Chaz was also not there. And also for the first time, because of John being John's friend, he is punished.
In a really bad way, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, did we needed that?
Well, also, too, there was a part, I don't remember if it was in 17 or 18, there was a part where Constantine, I think it was in 17, because he still didn't have his memory yet. And there was this weird guy that had been following him around. He follows Chaz into his house and, like, takes in their vacation home, and, like, takes them all hostage.
Oh, yeah.
And then John, like, threw the daughter out the window.
That was a thing. Like, no, the granddaughter. The
granddaughter. That's right.
Yeah. Baby, the granddaughter that he helped deliver in Guardians run, and then he just throws that baby off as one does. I'm like,
I think, he did it as a plan or a plot device, but I'm just like, dude.
No, that wasn't a plan. You got very lucky on that. And then that kind of creates a schism between him and Chaz. And I'm like, I don't want this. I want him and Chaz to be together. Like,
Oh, yeah, because as far as John knew, he didn't even remember who Chaz was because he didn't have his memory back yet.
Correct. And then, so that kind of continues because now Nargal takes over Chaz as a rat and then kind of replaces his heart, And then even though he extracts him, but a part of Nargal left behind, and that leads him to kind of beats up his wife and doing all of these things. And I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No. And then it kind of goes back to, like, we were worried about that, the niece is going to be kind of becomes the woman in refrigerator to kind of something bad's going to happen to move. But no, it turns out it was his sister, that those demons spawn gets to the sister, and even though they also go after the niece as well, but the niece
Yeah.
was a badass on her own, and then kind of beats up the bad guy in a way. Even though the whole issue, I'm like, oh my god, she's going to be raped, and I was just so scared for that.
Mhm.
But it was like, no, I'm going to be awesome and stuff like that. But too bad, because the sister pays the price. And
yeah, no, that was awful. And then in turn, that messes with his niece because she has to lose her mom, and then her dad was the one that technically did it, even though the son like took over the dad.
Right. But the thing is like that the dad was always weird, but I didn't know he was this weird. Like, he had the whole like religious thing and everything.
Yeah, like fundamental, like, yeah, I don't know.
I was like, but then so then he gets to go to hell, which was like very reminiscent of Wolverine going to hell by Jason Aaron's run. If you have read it, it was very much the same thing. And then he gets to meet all this hell spawn, like all the people he sent there. And then we get to also see why Nargal's daughter is after him, because apparently she was always fascinated by him, even though there was a whole thing with Nargal, his brother, and him, that like Game of Thrones thing that was going on. And we get to see also the part of him that he subjected to hell.
Yeah.
In Paul Jenkins' run.
Mm-hmm.
That makes an appearance. Actually, now that I think about it, it's not just Jamie Delano's; it's everyone's run, all his previous outings. And then he gets to bring just to bring the sister back. And then he gets to the very end, and the sister decides to stay.
Yeah, I forget. Didn't Nurgle? Was it Nurgle or some other demon?
Nurgle. It was Nurgle.
Yeah, it gave her like a choice, like basically either I'm going to torture your husband and you, or I don't know, or just the husband or something like that, right?
Yeah, either I'm going to or you two of you can share. Why she would choose that?
I'm going to be honest. If I was told what the husband did, I would have been like, well.
Listen, I don't want to put you in the thing. I don't know, your husband watches it. If it's between you, like your husband and you both goes to hell, and then it's like, well, you get to go back, or both of you get.
My husband killed me. That's the key,
right?
You know what I mean? So like, and also too, like, you don't care about your daughter. Like, somebody's got to be home to raise her, or well, I guess she's adult now, but still, like, you don't want to be around for her.
I was very annoyed. I was so annoyed. And the thing is, like, knowing Mike Carey, he's fairly good about writing women and stuff. So I was really annoyed about this. I'm like, come on.
I'll be honest, there might be some women that would just ride or die, but I don't know if I would. If my husband killed me.
Like, she knows that, that he knows,
right?
Yeah, and then it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to stay. It's okay. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it felt like a weak plot thing.
And because John did all of this just to save the sister. Yeah. I don't know whether it's because he's forever going to be like it's, to me, I'm like, okay, it's like those thing that, oh, he's forever going to be that tragic in air quote character who's anyone he loves is going to be in forever subject to a lot of pain. And this kind of, the sister was pretty much the last family he got left. Still, I don't see the point of this. I did not see the point of this.
I just thought of something like, how like the niece is trying to be like another Constantine, part of that aspect. And maybe it was trying to show like, because she got into it, it also hurt her family too.
Oh, the circle of life thing.
Yeah.
The Elton John. But yeah, I mean, it kind of just happened. And at that point, I'm like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
It was a cool story, though.
Way, but...
And I preface this saying that I love this volume more. I mean, I still liked it despite this. Even though I'm like, oh, that was so dumb. But the thing is that there was that follow-up issues were about, like, a very sweet growing up story with his sister and him, where he's remembering all the things that his sister done and all that. I'm like, why was all of this not before?
Yeah, because there was some weird stuff. The only thing we knew about his sister was that the dad might have been inappropriate with her. Right?
That
Because
was
that's
like
the only thing I remember about her.
that was like from Paul Jenkins' run. That like
Yeah.
the father used to be weird with her. Like, I mean, had ideas. Like, nothing happened.
Yeah, I don't know if anything happened, but they alluded to it, and that's the only thing I really knew about her.
And the thing is, like, most of the time she was in because John cared about the niece more. Like,
Yeah.
and then John would show up to the house from time to time in Thanksgiving and Christmas. And yeah, and that's the daughter, like, that's the sister. And then now she's gone, and John was sad.
I think I do kind of remember the niece's parents being like more strict on her. I didn't remember them being like super religious or anything, but I remember them not liking the magic that she was into.
But I think the dad was always a little bit on the
Maybe.
religious side, and because remember he was part of the cult as well from Delano's run.
Yeah. Okay, I remember.
Yeah,
That.
he was weird.
Yeah,
but
maybe it was just weird.
yeah. So, but the thing is, like, this is where it all kind of comes to be, and then then it just kind of ends with John being sad again. One thing I would say that he didn't have an entourage this time around. That's one of the things that was different. It was just that Angie, the girlfriend, and even then she leaves him because that's what you do. It's a girlfriend of the, and yeah, and then it ends. And I gave it a 4.5 and upped it to 5. I think I downed it to 4, but I was just left feeling a little underwhelmed because I expected a lot more from Mike Carey.
Yeah,
what about you?
I think I gave it a 4. I think yours might be different because you have that connection with him with Lucifer and stuff.
Right.
And so
Like
you thought there could have been more with it.
like, we bonded over Lucifer.
Yeah. Well, so for me, I actually really liked, like I said, I gave this one a 4. I liked the whole aspects of him like going through hell and all the different portals with the demons, and like I liked the plot with Nurgle's daughter and him. It was kind of interesting. And then you see, and even her uncle, Nurgle's brother, right? Too.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool because I don't know, I have a thing for like demons, and that was a good plot to me. I don't know.
Yeah. So what we learned today, you have thing for Swamp Thing, you have thing for demon.
And demons.
Swamp Thing and demons. That's the things that Bethany loves. And yeah, so that's what got you to give it like a 4-star.
Yeah. So if you want to persuade me to higher ratings in your comic,
Swamp Thing and demons.
Yeah.
Bethany will be giving it her 2 thumbs up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was left very underwhelmed. I expected a lot more from Mike Carey, and I'm like, well, this is kind of like the very same thing we've seen in like a little bit. Like he withdrawn a lot more inspiration from previous runs, and he tries to tie it together. But I did not think there was a lot of cohesiveness going on, or the mysteries that was happening. We needed to tell. There was not enough clues for us to figure out.
If he would have described it, like, or not described, like explain it better in the plot, then it probably would have been more impactful, but I didn't get a lot of it. So
Right. And the thing is, it wasn't like a mystery that I'm like, oh, that's what it was. I'm like, oh, sure.
Because like, are we supposed to know what the stick thing signified?
Right.
You know, I like that it was this armor, but
and the fact that neither of us can remember a lot of the things, it kind of shows that it wasn't all that memorable. Like the same way, I have no memory of Warren Ellis's time. I do remember everything of Garth Ennis's time, but nothing. Same. And the thing is, like, both of us actually sold our trade paperback set after reading this. We're like, we're done. I mean, we're still going to continue, and we're going to finish this series because we are committed individuals like that. But we're both like, we can read it off Hoopla or digitally. We don't need that.
And like, I'm really glad, we're reading it and everything. I think for me, the reason I wouldn't own it, first of all, I needed money for school. But second of all, if I don't feel like I'm going to reread something, I don't see the point of holding on to something worth that much,
Right. And as the thing is, though, I actually saw someone saying that, oh, Garth Ennis's was the best. Everything else was shit around that. I'm like, this guy. But now I'm thinking, I'm like, damn it.
Well, one thing I remember the most of Garth Ennis, he does so much like character development, and you really fall in love with his characters. And a lot of the other ones have kind of failed to do that. And not that, with Mike Carey, it's not that he didn't really do a good job on all of them. It's just most of it was just cameos and like kind of leaning back on past stories.
Right. Like, he's relying on other writers doing the job so that he can use them. And that's one of the things, like, because Garth Ennis's run is going to be coming out in an omnibus next year, because I'm like, that's all I need. If I ever reread this, that's all I will reread. And everything else, I'm like, there's no... I mean, people will have to pay me $10 million to reread Jamie Delano's run.
Yeah.
$10 million. That's the price. Not even 9 million, 10 million dollars. That's how I will.
After we read that, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna want to reread like any of these, but there were some maybe I would reread just to get the plot, but I don't feel like enough to where it would justify keeping all the volumes, because there's a lot.
I'm telling you though, if Innocence was at the very end, all of this would be like 5-star for me. But because I've already read Innis, and which was the best of them all, everything else is kind of falling flat for me.
Yeah,
because I'm like, I don't care.
Up your expectations a lot. So
exactly, and I don't know. So the thing is, the next one is going to be Dennis Minna, who is the only female writer who have done this until Holly Black. Sorry, that's her name. Holly Black done it in 2016 run. No, that was Lucifer. I'm sorry. What am I talking about? Yeah, Dennis Minna is as of right now, I think, like the only female writer who have ever written John Constantine, and I am excited to read her stuff. And then following that, I think it's Peter Milligan. No, it's Andy Diggle. Andy Diggle, Jason Aaron comes back for two issues, and then Andy Diggle. So it's Dennis Minna and Andy Diggle's run that we're going to be talking about next. And that brings us to issue 250. After that, it's Peter Milligan who comes for 251 to 300, which I think is the longest anyone written.
Yeah, he like wraps it all up. So I'm kind of interested to see how someone can take it that long, that many issues.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, John is kind of losing his charm a little bit too.
Well, I mean,
for me, he's still hot.
This gets some ages, but it's like, well, he's getting old.
He's still hot and sexy and very sarcastic and all that. But the thing is, like, at times I'm like, son, shut up. Like,
yeah, because it's like, I guess I thought as his character evolved, he would grow up out of some of those like negative character, flaws, but no.
No. But so sometimes in the next month we'll be back with the next issue, like next part of this, and that's going to take us, I think, to volume 21, I believe.
Yeah, right? But then volume 21 isn't even out, like, published yet for the paperbacks.
Oh, really? What was it? Which one? The Luffin Magician? That was 2022. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to be reading up to issue 250 for the next part. And we'll be back sometimes over the next, 2 weeks to a month. And then we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to go to Peter Milligan's and finally wrap this up. Because this is something worth even though we kind of trashed this, but it's worth talking about. So we'll be back. So keep an eye out for that. Bethany, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So you can see the previous, the link for the previous runs in the description below. We will be back with our regular Hicksman report for tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. Follow us in all our social media to see what's coming up and what special things we're going to be doing. If there's other books that you think we should be reading, do let us know in the comment below. So thank you once again, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye. Bye.